It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at Pinnacle Advertising until a can of Coca-Cola was hurled across the office, soaking Amara Jackson, a black woman and senior strategist, in front of her stunned colleagues. The humiliating act, meant as a cruel prank, unleashed a firestorm no one saw coming, especially when her husband, a billionaire with unmatched influence, stepped through the door and turned the tables in a way that would leave the entire company reeling. Script: Amara Jackson walked into the open-plan office of Pinnacle Advertising at 8:45 a.m., her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. She carried her usual thermos of coffee in one hand and a tablet in the other, her eyes scanning the latest campaign analytics. At 34, she was the youngest senior strategist in the firm's history, a position she'd earned through relentless work and a knack for turning struggling brands into household names. Her colleagues respected her, at least most of them did. But there was an undercurrent, a subtle tension that followed her in certain circles of the office, one she'd learned to navigate but never fully ignore. "Good morning, Amara," said Lisa, the receptionist, offering a warm smile as Amara passed the front desk. "Morning, Lisa," Amara replied, her voice calm but focused. "Any updates on the Reynolds pitch?" "Client called at 8. They want the revised deck by noon," Lisa said, handing her a sticky note with a scribbled reminder. "Thanks," Amara said, tucking the note into her tablet case. She headed toward her corner office, nodding at a few colleagues who waved or murmured greetings. But as she approached the break room, she noticed a group of 4 coworkers, Mark, Jenna, Tyler, and Rachel, huddled near the coffee machine. Their conversation stopped abruptly when they saw her, their eyes darting away. Amara's gut tightened, but she brushed it off. She'd dealt with their clique before. They were junior strategists, ambitious but often careless, and their whispers had never amounted to more than petty gossip. She set her thermos on the break room counter and opened the fridge to grab a yogurt. That's when she heard Mark's voice, low but deliberate. "Bet she thinks she's untouchable now, with that promotion." Amara froze, her hand on the fridge handle. She didn't turn around, but her ears were sharp. "Yeah, like she's the only one who could have gotten it," Jenna added, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Must be nice to have everyone tiptoeing around you." Tyler chuckled. "What's the deal with her anyway? Always acting like she's above us." Amara's jaw clenched. She wasn't surprised by their words. She'd heard variations of them before, but the boldness stung. She closed the fridge, yogurt in hand, and turned to face them. "If you have something to say, you can say it to me directly," she said, her voice steady but firm. The group fell silent, their faces a mix of defiance and discomfort. Rachel, the quietest of the 4, shifted her weight, avoiding Amara's gaze. Mark, however, smirked. "Just talking shop, Amara. No need to get defensive." "Doesn't sound like shop talk to me," Amara said, her eyes locking onto his. "If you've got an issue with my work, bring it to the team meeting. Otherwise, keep it professional." Mark's smirk faltered, but he shrugged. "Whatever you say, boss." Amara walked out, her heart pounding but her expression composed. She didn't have time for their games. The Reynolds account was a multi-million-dollar deal, and her presentation was the linchpin. She spent the next 2 hours in her office, refining slides and cross-checking data, her focus unbroken despite the lingering sting of their words. At 11 a.m., the team gathered in the main conference room for a briefing. Amara stood at the head of the table, her tablet synced to the projector as she walked the group through the revised campaign. The room was packed, 20 colleagues, including the 4 from the break room, plus the firm's VP, Claudia Reynolds, no relation to the client, who'd flown in from the New York office to oversee the pitch. "The client's core demographic is shifting," Amara said, pointing to a graph on the screen. "Gen Z is driving 60% of their revenue now, so we're leaning into short-form video and influencer partnerships. The data backs this. Engagement rates on TikTok are triple those on traditional platforms." Claudia nodded, jotting notes. "Solid approach, Amara. What's the budget breakdown for the influencer spend?" Amara tapped her tablet, pulling up a detailed spreadsheet. "We're allocating 40% to micro-influencers, 30% to mid-tier, and the rest to 1 or 2 high-profile names. It's cost-effective and maximizes reach. Mark, seated near the back, leaned forward. Isn't that a bit risky? Micro-influencers can be hit or miss. Amara didn't miss a beat. The data disagrees. Micro-influencers have higher trust metrics. 78% of their followers engage authentically compared to 42% for celebrities. I can share the study if you'd like. Mark leaned back, his lips pressed into a thin line. Claudia raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The meeting continued, with Amara fielding questions and steering the discussion back to the campaign's strengths. By the end, Claudia was smiling. This is strong, Amara. I'm confident we'll land this. Let's finalize the deck and get it to the client. As the team dispersed, Amara gathered her things, feeling a quiet sense of triumph. She'd handled the meeting flawlessly, even with Mark's attempt to undermine her. But as she stepped into the hallway, she heard quick footsteps behind her. Before she could turn, something cold and wet hit her back, soaking through her blazer and dripping down her legs. She spun around, stunned, to see Tyler holding an empty Coca-Cola can, his face a mix of shock and amusement. Jenna and Rachel stood behind him, giggling, while Mark crossed his arms, grinning. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Amara said, her voice shaking with anger. Her blazer was ruined, the sticky liquid seeping into her white blouse. "Relax, it's just a joke," Tyler said, tossing the can into a nearby trash bin. "You looked like you needed to cool off." "A joke." Amara stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You think this is funny? Throwing a drink on me in the middle of the office?" Jenna rolled her eyes. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's just soda." "Nothing." Amara's voice rose, drawing the attention of nearby colleagues who paused to watch. "This is harassment. You don't get to do this and call it a joke." Mark snorted. "Harassment? Come on, Amara. Don't play the victim card." The words hit like a slap. Amara's hands balled into fists, but before she could respond, Claudia appeared in the hallway, her expression darkening as she took in the scene. "What's going on here?" she demanded. "They threw a can of Coca-Cola on me," Amara said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "In front of everyone." Claudia's eyes narrowed as she looked at Tyler, Jenna, Rachel, and Mark. "Is this true?" Tyler shrugged, his bravado fading. "It was an accident. I didn't mean to hit her." "An accident?" Amara said, pointing to her soaked clothes. "You aimed at me." Claudia held up a hand. "Enough. All of you in my office. Now." As they moved toward Claudia's office, the elevator dinged, and a man stepped out. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, his presence commanding the room without effort. His dark eyes scanned the scene, landing on Amara's wet clothes and the stunned faces around her. It was Marcus Jackson, Amara's husband, a billionaire tech mogul whose company, Horizon Innovations, had reshaped the global software industry. He wasn't supposed to be there. He'd mentioned a board meeting across town, but something had clearly brought him to Pinnacle. "Amara," Marcus said, his voice calm but edged with steel. "What happened?" Amara's shoulders relaxed slightly at the sight of him, but her anger hadn't faded. "They threw a drink on me," she said, gesturing to her blazer. "Tyler, Jenna, Rachel, and Mark. They thought it was funny." Marcus's jaw tightened, his gaze shifting to the group. "Is that true?" Tyler opened his mouth, but no words came out. Jenna stammered. "It was just a prank, sir. We didn't mean." "A prank?" Marcus cut her off, his voice low and dangerous. "You humiliated my wife in her workplace, and you call it a prank." Claudia stepped forward, her face pale. "Mr. Jackson, I'm handling this. We'll investigate and take appropriate action." Marcus didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the four culprits, who now seemed to shrink under his stare. "Amara, are you okay?" he asked, his tone softening. "I'm fine," Amara said, though her voice wavered. "Just angry." Marcus nodded, then turned to Claudia. "I assume you have a zero-tolerance policy for workplace harassment?" "Of course," Claudia said quickly. "We'll follow protocol." "Protocol?" Marcus repeated, his voice cold. Let me make this simple. I own a 40% stake in Pinnacle Advertising through Horizon's investment arm. That makes me the majority shareholder. And I'm not interested in protocols that let this kind of behavior slide. Claudia's eyes widened. Mr. Jackson, I assure you. You're done assuring, Marcus said. He pointed to Tyler, Jenna, Rachel, and Mark. You four. You're fired. Effective immediately. What? Mark blurted, stepping forward. You can't just. I can, Marcus said. And I am. You're out. Security will escort you to your desks to collect your things. Jenna's face crumpled. This isn't fair. It was just a stupid mistake. A mistake? Marcus said. You targeted my wife. You humiliated her in front of her colleagues. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Rachel started to cry, her hands shaking. Please, Mr. Jackson. I didn't even throw it. You stood there, Marcus said. You laughed. That's enough. Tyler squared his shoulders, trying to salvage his pride. You think you can just walk in here and fire us because of who you are? This is ridiculous. Marcus didn't flinch. I'm firing you because of what you did. And trust me, I'm being restrained. If I wanted to, I could make sure you never work in this industry again. The office was silent now, every employee watching the exchange. Claudia cleared her throat. Mr. Jackson, perhaps we can discuss this privately. No, Marcus said. This isn't a discussion. This is a decision. And it's final.